There's the pass to Leitner. Puts it up. Yes!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Cameron Chronicles. I'm your host, Max Rego. I'm joined today by Alex Jackson. Alex, how are we doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for actually I'm a co-host now, so thanks for having myself on. Glad to be here.
Yeah, no, always great when we can link up, do this thing again. We'll come to you December 19th, Monday, day before Duke's not ACC opener, but ACC road opener and the first game of true extended ACC play at Wake Forest tomorrow night. Duke has been off since December 10th when they beat University of Maryland Eastern Shore by 27. It was off for finals and reading week, but now it's back almost for tomorrow night against Wake Forest, 6:30 p.m. Over on ACC Network. So obviously with that, we felt like it was a good time to kind of preview ACC play. Obviously, Duke's got a gauntlet ahead of it, 19 games through March 4th, ending with at North Carolina on the last Saturday of the college basketball regular season, at least. So yeah, let's get started. So going in ACC play, Duke is obviously 10-2, 1-0 in their only ACC game, which was a win at home against Boston College. A relatively impressive win, 75-59. And also Duke comes in to ACC play off of 4 straight victories, 2 of them being over Big Ten opponents, Ohio State and Iowa, over the last couple of weeks. So lots to talk about, some growth from Duke over the last couple of weeks. But Alex, what do you think Duke has going for it going into ACC play on a positive note?
Yeah, so I think having this kind of extended break is actually hugely beneficial for Duke. So I'm a Bears fan, and earlier this year, the Bears played a Thursday night game and a Monday night game in back-to-back weeks, and so they had it extended by like a kind of a mini bye, I guess, and that really served them well in terms of letting players get healthy, which we are seeing with Jeremy Roach right now, and then also kind of just find themselves, figure out what the issues were earlier in the year, and let them correct themselves going forward. And I think Duke hasn't looked as high quality of basketball as we were hoping out of the number 1 overall recruiting class, although we've seen some great basketball being played out of Cal Filipowski. Obviously, everyone was hoping for a little bit more out of Derek Lively. So I think this bye week, I'm going to call it, served them really well for them to kind of look back on the first part of the season and say, hey, like what was working and what wasn't working in the beginning and what can we do going into ACC play that'll really allow us to kind of step into the momentum that we have built so far. I think it'll be really interesting to see how they come out of this. I know it's not like they weren't playing any basketball during reading week and in the finals period. So I think they've had some chances to get good practice in as a team, and Jeremy is coming back now, hopefully fully healthy, the healthiest we've seen him since the injury. And so I think Duke has a lot going for them heading into Wake Forest, although Wake Forest is no joke of a team, and it's their first true road game. So they'll still definitely face some contention here.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a tough game. I think Wake Forest is definitely one of the sleeper-ish teams in the ACC. Obviously lost a lot from last year. Alondas Williams and Jake LaRavia, probably their 2 best players. But they have Tyree Appleby, one of the best scorers in the ACC. He's averaging 18 a game. And, you know, they've been solid. They're coming off a loss to Rutgers. And they gave Duke some trouble last year in Cameron, came back from a double-digit deficit to tie the game late before Mark Williams had a game-winning dunk at the buzzer, pretty much. But yeah, it's going to be a tough game, first true road game, like you said. I'm interested in seeing how Dariq Whitehead performs after his first start against Maryland Eastern Shore. He was really impressive, I thought, in the second half of that game. Similar, I think, to what happened with AJ Griffin last year when he was coming in off that knee injury. It took him time to get acclimated, to get his feet under him. And, there were some non-conference games where he really got going late. And, it was similar for Whitehead. I mean,
it's funny you mentioned AJ Griffin here. I love the comparison, but you know which game was the breakout game for him?
which one?
Wake Forest.
That's true.
In Wake Forest.
Breakout game was Wake Forest. Yeah. Last year at Wake Forest was his first start. But yeah, so Whitehead, I mean, 15 points, 6 of 14 from the field, not the most efficient, 1 of 5 from 3, but just doing a little bit of everything. 2 rebounds, 2 assists, a block, and 2 steals. He's starting to come into his own. I thought he played really well against Iowa as well. 8 points, 3 of 7 from the field, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. I think he's starting to acclimate himself into the offense, starting to figure out a role. Without Roach, it was important for him against Maryland Eastern Shore to get some run, running the offense, being like the primary ball handler, because you can't play Proctor 40 minutes a night, obviously, especially against a non-conference, a lower conference, non-conference team. But yeah, I think it was impressive, and I'm interested in seeing what Whitehead does from here. Whether he can continue that growth like on a more linear trajectory. And again, also, how much of this team is going to be built on its depth. I think Roach coming back solves a lot of their work concerns. I think in the backcourt, he stabilizes things. And he is the guy you need to go to for big shot making. But it's still, this team is still not, there's no Paolo Banchero on this team. There's no, Jason Tatum. There's no Zion Williamson. There's not one guy who's going to lead the team in scoring every night. It's going to be it's going to be a cast of characters. Mark Mitchell has led them in scoring. Filipowski obviously has been really impressive all year. Proctor and Whitehead led the team in scoring, tied at 15 points against Maryland Eastern Shore. It's been a lot of everything, and seeing how the rotations develop, how much minutes Jalen Blakes gets, whether Jaden Shutt gets some more playing time after his 9 points against Maryland Eastern Shore. Seeing how much Ryan Young continues to play. Jacob Granison, his role is expanding as a cutter and a screener and a shooter. So I think there's a lot of layers to this team that I think could benefit them come and end of conference play into the conference tournament and NCAA tournament. And I think I'm excited to see that kind of develop and shake out.
Yeah, I think the story all season has been that the defense has been so exceptional, but the offense has really struggled, and they're still looking for that identity. So that's one of the things that I'm personally really looking to see if they can develop now as they move into ACC play, especially coming after this extended break. And one guy what we saw Shire turn to towards the end before the break was Jaden Schutt. I know they're looking for one more guy to work into the rotation, and he's a really good 3-point shooter and showed some flashes of really good stuff against Maryland Eastern Shore. So I think I'd be really interested to see if he can kind of start building himself up a little bit more of a role. I know the expectation isn't much, but if he can provide a boost for Duke around the 3-point line, then that would just change kind of the look of this team in general, because they wouldn't have to rely so much on their defense. They could really excel on offense.
Yeah, agreed. I think shooting is not this team's strength. If you look at the starting lineup with Roach in it, which he will play tomorrow night, according to John Shire. Roach, Proctor, Filipowski, all fairly capable shooters. Mitchell, he's continuing to shoot the ball well. I still don't trust it.
Yeah, no shot. I cringe a little bit every time he puts one up from the corner. Yeah, although he has proven me wrong so far. I just don't know if it's sustainable.
Yeah, he's leading the team in 3-point shooting at 42.9% among guys who qualify. I believe Schutt has a higher percentage on his limited attempts, but I don't know if I trust it. I don't trust him to shoot like a pull-up 3, a contested 3 at least. If it's off a driving kick and he's wide open, sure. But I think adding another shooter to the equation is definitely would be something that could help this team out a lot, right? Because I'm looking at their statistics right now. Their 3-point shooting, they're shooting 31.7% as a team. Compare that to last year, which was a very good 3-point shooting team. And last year shot 36.8%. So 5%, that might not seem like a ton, but that's significant if you extrapolate that over a full season. So if you're looking at Filipowski and Shoot and Grandison and Roach and Proctor, that's a pretty good list of shooters. And Whitehead, if he's shown some ability from three, then I think you can get that part of the offense going, because there's not as much inside out game with Lively. He's a good passer, but he doesn't have as much of a post game as you would think of from a guy his size. He's just still more of a rim runner and a lob threat. I would like to see, I think that's one of the things they need to work on with him, is get him some more post touches, just to give defenses a different look and spread the court. And, if you want to get open shooters, dump it down inside and see how many open looks you can get off of that. Cause he is a really good passer. But yeah,
I think,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I think just the issue we've seen probably in the offense the most this year is consistency amongst scoring. I know what you were saying before about like a different guy will lead scoring every night, and that can be a really good thing. But I would like to still see other guys show up, even if they're not leading the team in scoring. There's been a lot of games this season where Mark Mitchell has kind of fallen out of the scoring column, or it's hard for them, as we were just saying, to get Lively going. And it's nice. It's really nice to see one guy light it up every night, at least. But I would still like to see more of a consistent impact from guys like that. Plus Grandison also. I know Ryan Young impacts the game all over the place, not just scoring. But if we continue seeing problems with Lively, I mean, the impact of Young cannot be understated. So I think just seeing that consistency a bit more will help Lively also find his footing. Just as it goes, kind of knowing where he can kick the ball out to, or kind of position himself to make a better play around the basket. There's a lot of potential, but yeah, the consistency thing for me is what's been holding me up about this offense.
Yeah, I think the offense is definitely still a work in progress. I think I thought there were some encouraging signs against Iowa and Maryland Eastern Shore, specifically Iowa, with how well Roach played and how well they shared the ball. But against Maryland Eastern Shore, still way too many turnovers. I think Shire was frustrated with it. It was a little jarring how careless they were with the ball. I mean, looking at the stats now, they had 19 total turnovers. Maryland Shore had 18, so Duke wasn't severely outgunned there. But if you're playing Virginia or Miami or North Carolina, they're not going to turn the ball over 18 times. They're going to take those 19 turnovers and pounce and get out and fast.
Yeah, they're going to.
Yeah, maybe not Virginia that much because they play at snail's pace, but definitely North Carolina and Miami will pick up the pace and they can make you pay.
Yeah, they'll cash in far more often than Maryland Eastern Shore did on those transition opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, looking from Iowa, I think that's a good blueprint for, what this offense could look like. Roach obviously leading the team in scoring with 22. But just how they move the ball, the 13 assists on 28 field goals isn't crazy, isn't earth shattering, but Iowa went to a zone. They still moved the ball well. They've cut well. They flashed well. They shot 7 of 20 from 3. That's 35%. That's above their season average. And I think that's a blueprint that, they don't need to jack up 33s a game. I think around 20 is the right formula, because you have good drivers with Roach and Proctor. Filipowski's playing more and more inside. You have Young. Blake's can take it to the basket. Grandison's a good cutter. Whitehead can drive. This team's gonna, 3-point shooting is not going to be the main way this team scores. Just not. But the thing that they can add is if they have the 3-point shooting, it's a luxury, and it just changes how you can defend them. So then that opens up the driving lanes. So anything else you want to go through before we get to the kind of the broader ACC landscape?
No, I was just about to say, let's probably dive into talking about some of Duke's competition.
Yeah. Yeah. So Duke was obviously picked second in the preseason, behind defending NCAA runner-up North Carolina, and just ahead of number three projected Virginia. It's kind of been flipped around a little bit. Virginia is the highest ranked team in the ACC currently. And then North Carolina is unranked at 8-4. Obviously, I don't think if you don't know that and you're listening to this podcast, you're probably not really paying too much attention. But they've been the most disappointing team in college basketball so far, bar none. Notwithstanding their win over Ohio State, which I think is going to be important come Selection Sunday when they're trying to get a seed.
I mean, I don't know, man. Louisville is sitting at 2-9 right now. Pretty disappointing.
Yeah, but Louisville sucks. Everyone knew they were going to suck coming into the year. North Carolina was the number one team.
Yeah, I mean, no, I get it.
Well, maybe they shouldn't have been the number one team. I still think they're one of the best teams in the country when they're.
I think they'll be fine.
Cylinders. Yeah.
This is exactly how it went last year, pretty much, and they ended up getting hot right at the right moment. So definitely in no way writing UNC off this early in the season.
Not at all. So Virginia is 6th in the AP Top 25. Duke is 14th. Miami is 22nd. Virginia Tech's actually 21st. And that's kind of the top 5 in the top 4.
Yeah, I think it's actually pretty. The for the past couple of years, the kind of rhetoric around ACC basketball has been that the conference has fallen off a little bit. It's become weaker, but this year I don't really see that at all. I mean, Virginia has come out smoking, obviously. Yeah. Just one of the unstoppable forces in college basketball. But Duke's played well, and then outside of that, I mean, Miami and Virginia Tech have been awesome. They've picked up 11 wins each and only one loss. And I mean, UNC is still very good, even though they're not in the top 25. And outside of that, I mean, every team but Louisville and Florida State have 6 wins at least through their opening series before ACC play. So I think it's going to be, this is primed to become a year where everyone's beating everyone. I feel like I obviously Virginia and Duke and UNC will probably garnish the most of those wins, but I think for the most part, like, we could see a lot of moving up and down across everyone with no one team really kind of dominating everyone else. And like last year, I feel like we saw a few more teams fall to the bottom pretty quickly, but I just don't see that happening right away. Yeah,
I agree. I think you can kind of rule out Louisville. I know it's their first year with Kenny Payne. You got to give him time. He's an alum, whatever. They stink. They suck. They're not going to contend. They're probably going to finish last in the ACC. Florida State.
You got to give Louisville a little bit of credit. They picked up. They're on a 2-game win streak right now. They started out 0-9. Who knows? This might be a turning point in that.
Progress.
In a few weeks, they might be 9-9.
Maybe. Florida State 3-10. A lot of injuries. Matthew Cleveland, kind of their only really good scorer from what I can tell. And he's averaging 13 a game. So it's not lighting the world on fire, but they're 3-10. They're not going to contend for the ACC. Boston College 6-6. Probably a little too early to say, but they're only in their second year under new coach, Earl Grant. So probably not going to be a contender. And then you got like Georgia Tech, Notre Dame, Wake, Syracuse, all at 4 losses, Pittsburgh at 4 losses, Clemson at 9-3, NC State 10-3. That feels like kind of the next tier. NC State at 10-3 is one of the sleeper teams, I think. Terquavian Smith, really, really good player. But then you got, I think, the big boys, so for lack of a better term, Miami, Duke, UNC, Virginia, and Virginia Tech. I really like Miami. Jim Larinaga, great coach. Isaiah Wong is really freaking good. I think they're going to be really tough. Duke plays them twice this year. I think Miami gets one of those games, probably the game at Miami. They're
Miami's next game is at Virginia, or against Virginia in Miami. So I think that'll be a pretty good indicator of where they're at right now. I mean, they haven't played the toughest schedule.
No, they haven't.
And neither has Virginia Tech. But then that's not to say that they don't have some impressive showings. And obviously, an 11-1 record speaks for itself. So I think that's going to be some really good basketball, and it'll kind of give Duke some insight into where they stand against Miami, and also how they could stand against Virginia.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be super interesting. Miami, Virginia. I didn't realize that was tomorrow. Maybe I'll go. I don't know. I live 5 minutes from the stadium, and they give out tickets for free, basically. But yeah, that'll be a super interesting game. Virginia coming off a loss to Houston by 8. Houston, obviously a top 5 team, one of the best teams in the country. Virginia lost by 8 there, but Virginia, super experienced team. Kihei Clark, Armand Franklin, Reese Beekman, Jaden Garter, all returning, all studs. Caden Shedrick also returning, taking a big jump this year as their big guy. Gardner, just, kind of a scoring forward machine, not scoring a ton this year. Actually, his scoring is down to almost 12 points a game, but for his career, he's averaging, he's averaged over 15 a game every year in his career up until this year. He was really tough to guard for Duke. I remember in the game that Duke lost in Cameron last year. Reese Beekman, great defender. Ben Vanderplas, I think he's a transfer. One of their glue guys, averaging 7 points and 4 rebounds. They're just a really good program. I mean, they have a ton of experience. They're going to be one of the best teams in college basketball throughout the year. Some really good wins on their schedule. They beat Baylor, they beat Illinois, they beat Michigan. And their only loss is to a really good Houston team. So they're going to be, I think, if I had to pick a team to win the ACC regular season title, I'd go Virginia right now. And I would go.
Oh, really? It's not like they're the best team in the conference right now.
Yeah. I know, bold, but I go Virginia, and then I think it's going to be a battle. I mean, I think it's going to be a battle not a battle for second, but second could be a number of teams. It could be Duke, it could be Miami. I think North Carolina is going to really figure it out. I think they're figuring out they just got to throw it inside more to Baycott and play off of that. But I think,
I think both Duke and UNC, that's the clear number 2 battle. I think we're agreeing on that. But both teams notoriously, or at least this is the sense I'm getting this year, could pick up some losses in games that they shouldn't necessarily lose, and it could throw some other teams in the mix. Even if the ACC is only pulling out 5 tournament teams, I think there's still a lot of teams that could contend Duke and UNC for that number 2 spot.
Yeah, I think the one team we haven't really talked about is Virginia Tech. Again, super well-coached team, defending ACC tournament champions. They lost Kivi Aluma, one of the best players in the conference, but they brought back Justin Mutz, Hunter Couture, who, if Duke fans will definitely remember this guy from the ACC tournament last year, absolutely lighting Duke on fire in that final. He's averaging 10 a game. Mutz is averaging 12.8. Sean Padula, their leading scorer, he's averaging over 17 a game. And he, after averaging only 5 a game, just over 5 a game last year. So they're a really well coached team. They share the ball really well. They shoot the three. They're shooting almost 36% from three. So and I know our guy Piazza loves Mike Young. So he would probably pick Virginia Tech to win the whole tournament if he could. But I think that's going to be another really good team. I think you got those 5 teams that are tournament like locks for sure. And then I think you got NC State and Notre Dame and Wake Forest, Clemson, Syracuse, with Boeheim. Yeah, at least you got to give them a little bit of respect.
They all certainly have an outside shot at performing well.
Yeah.
Like what I was saying, that if a few of those teams end up knocking off Duke, UNC a little bit here or there, I think that could definitely bolster their resumes and kind of help them find a way into the tournament. But yeah, we're so far away from that; it's hard to say right now.
Yeah, I think Duke's in a pretty good spot. I mean, they're getting healthy, and they have really, really good depth right now. I think it's important to get off to a good start though. At Wake Forest, Florida State, not the toughest games that Duke will have on their schedule. Getting those 2 before the new year, and then you got at NC State, which I think will be a tough game. NC State, PNC Arena is a tough place to play for Duke over the years. That'll be a tough one at BC, at Pittsburgh at home, at Clemson. That's kind of a medium tier start to AC play, not the toughest. So I think getting off to a hot start, building momentum, building chemistry, and racking up wins at the same time is going to be super important, because then the schedule gets a lot tougher with Miami at Virginia Tech, North Carolina at Miami, at Virginia, in a 3-week stretch. So that's going to be January 21st to February 11th. So that's going to be really tough.
Yeah, and looking at that one string of 3 games in a row against UNC, then at Miami, then at Virginia, kind of in a 1-week stretch. Like that could really slow them down. So it would be nice for them to kind of get a rhythm going by that point in the season.
Yeah, especially just like establishing lineups and rotations, getting Whitehead and Lively fully integrated. Lively is basically there. He still has some stuff to clean up. I think his post, he could have more of an interior presence, more of a post presence. But his defense has been, I think, really pretty impressive. It's his court awareness has improved. But Whitehead still needs to come into his own a little more. So I think, do you want to do some predictions? Maybe how many ACC wins Duke will have? Maybe predict like that top 5 or so. I don't know.
Sure. How many wins do I think they're had? I would rather go with how many losses do I think they're gonna have.
Well, same thing.
Yeah, as I'm looking through the schedule right now, I haven't actually thought about this too deeply yet, and so I'm just kind of picking out my losses right now. I think they're definitely going to drop at least one to UNC. I think they'll drop one to Miami, like you said before. Virginia, at Virginia, that's a tough game. I think they could pick up 4 or 5 losses in ACC play easily.
Yeah.
And then maybe a 6-1, some random game that just gets away from them on an off day.
Yeah. I think I'm going to go with 5. In order of the schedule, I think they will lose at NC State. I think they're going to lose to Wake at home. I think that's just going to be a home. I think that'll probably be their. Yeah. January 31st, not the one tomorrow. I think they'll beat Wake tomorrow. But I think that's the game right before Carolina. I think Wake could sneak up and beat Duke on a Tuesday night. I think they're going to lose at Miami, at Virginia, and at North Carolina. I think they're going to, on the last night of the season, I think they're going to beat North Carolina at home. I think they're going to lose to North Carolina on the road. I think Carolina is going to turn it around significantly. And I also think on their senior, the senior night for Armando Bacot, for Pete Nance. Might be the last time Caleb Love plays in the Dean Dome, and maybe RJ Davis, depending on NBA stuff for them. I don't think Duke's going to win that game, but I very well could be wrong. That's in, over 2 months. So I it's hard to project now with injuries and, trends going in, but those are the 5 that I have Duke losing. I think Duke will finish second or third in the ACC, behind Virginia and possibly North Carolina. But I think it's going to be a really competitive race alongside Miami and Virginia Tech and maybe some sleeper teams like Wake. And, who knows, maybe NC State could get involved, Notre Dame, you never know. But I think it's going to be a super interesting race, over the back half of ACC play. So anything else you got?
No, I think that's it for me. I mean, yeah, I honestly, the Virginia game, I think that could be a moment where Duke rises to the occasion and people kind of count them out because of how well Virginia is playing. But there are certainly no games this year where I think Duke is taking an automatic loss. I think every game's going to be hotly contested. But yeah, they're destined to drop at least 4, and then the 5th and 6th. Like it'll just depend on how they come out of this mini bye. So I think there's a lot of optimism around this team going into ACC play, and I'm excited to see what that looks like starting tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree. I think, just to note, I think last year's team, which I think, a lot still has to happen, but last year's team, I think was a better team than this one is, from the first 12 games of this season and all of last season, just basing it off that. And that team lost 4 ACC games in a weaker ACC. And the ACC is tougher this year, and I don't think this team is quite as talented on the top end, or as experienced. Wendell Moore, Jeremy Roach, Mark Williams, those guys had experience coming in. The only guy really with experience was playing for Duke was Roach and Blakes, and he barely played last year. So that's why, Ryan Young and Grandison have helped so much for this team. But yeah, we're I think that's ready to wrap it, right? You got anything else? I don't think so.
Yeah, no, that's it for me. Thanks for listening, everyone, and happy holidays to all.
Yeah, no, happy holidays to everyone. Hope everyone's taking the time to hang out with your families. We will have coverage, like we always do, of tomorrow night's game, at Duke at Wake Forest. I will be covering it alongside our sports editor, Jonathan Leviton. We plan on covering that one remotely. So we will have coverage. The game is at, again, 6:30 p.m. on ACC Network. And then Duke again has another similarly long break for Christmas until New Year's Eve battle against Florida State at 1 p.m. on ESPN2. So it'll get another chance to continue to get healthy, continue to build chemistry in practice and scrimmaging, and getting in the film room and the weight room, that type of thing. So gonna be it's a busy season. Basketball season is ramping up, even day by day. So thanks everyone for joining, and Alex, thanks for hopping on with me.
Yeah, this was great.
All right, thanks everyone for tuning in.